All right. How you doing, everybody? It's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous back with another episode of Dangerous Minds. The first episode in about a few months, I took a step back so I can get some things together. And because of the pandemic, it is made it very difficult. But thanks to Zoom, we are back in action. Like to introduce my first guest, Dope Group. We're both under the same management company, so we already had the connection there, but I'm also a big fan of this stuff. Wake in April, say hi to the people.
Hello.
Hello,
People.
So first, how's everything been, being an artist, like, during this whole pandemic thing?
It's been okay. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's been okay. We both teach piano lessons,
Nice.
as well as perform, and so we've been able to do virtual lessons pretty much since the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
And
so, like, financially, things have been pretty okay.
And we yeah, it's not been amazing, but it's that was kind of our primary source of income anyway, and we were able to continue that. And a lot of our students and parents of our students are really understanding, and they're like, "You're a small business, we're going to help you out," and so that's been steady, which has been deeply grateful. The thing that I've kind of been saying from the beginning is, like, all of our problems with COVID have been frustration, not desperation. Right. Because of that income thing. I mean, certainly we're making less money because we're not playing, and I play bass for some side people as well. And that this all just dried up. But we did have a lot of stuff about to happen right when it hit. We were going to go on tour. We we're going to try to fund an album. Like, we were about to hit it.
We had our whole year so planned out, and I'm sure most people did, right? We had so many plans, and, like, everything was all set to go, and then, like, right at the last second, we waited as long as we could because we were hoping that things would go differently than they did, but we had to cancel everything. The kind of the kick of that was, like, because we were going to go to South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. Nice. Yeah, we didn't get on a showcase, but we were just going to go and hang out and make a tour out of it and do all this stuff. And then South by got canceled, and it was like, oh. Man. That's okay. Serious. That's, like, why we were going on the road. Yeah, okay. That was like a big thing.
But
so that's been, like, logistically and, like, as far as the plans, really disappointing, and, like, artistically, I feel like we've had to kind of shift our priorities, and like we were planning to prioritize the live show and, like, performing as much as possible this year, and obviously that can't happen. So we've kind of shifted focus instead onto writing and recording. And
we should plug something now.
Go ahead.
We're that's translated into, we recorded some stuff here at our house, just because we have the power. I don't know how to say that.
So the instruments.
Yeah,
here.
we have the capability. So there's just demos, just basically capturing what we execute live, but in a structured way. So no double tracking or anything like that. But then we tossed it over to our buddy Holt at Xover Productions, and we're actually going to be releasing them over the summer.
Yeah, so we have 4 songs to release throughout the summer that have been kind of what we've been working on during our quarantine time.
And the last one is a single that we recorded at the same time as Stretch, which is our single right now, back at B&B Audio. So that's completely fleshed out and, like, fully realized, and so that's coming out in September.
Nice.
Yeah,
I look forward to it. That's one of the positives about this whole thing, is that I had a lot more time to just kind of sit down and write. Like, as far as, like, writing and a little bit of recording, I'm a little bit ahead of schedule for some stuff that I was supposed to be putting out later in the year that might actually come out a little sooner. That's one positive. I do miss shows, like you said. Like, a lot of things were put on hold. We had, like, a lot of collabs, had a lot of shows, just a few of them that were coming up right before everything got shut down. They had to completely cancel it. But, so other than the pandemic, we've also been having, the protests after the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, and countless others. in the span of just a couple months.
Yeah.
Like sparked outrage all over the country. And you guys actually reached out to me to speak on, speak on this, which I would say, like, just speaking honestly, when you first sent me the message, I read it, I boiled over it for about an hour because I didn't, there's nothing against you guys, but it's just like at first I didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Kind of like it had been like that was basically the whole conversation for like a month straight. And not only like, with this situations are new, but like, since I was a little kid, these other conversations, it seemed like these cycles just happen. It just seemed like it's a little bigger than it normally does. Normally gets, which that's why I ultimately decided, like, let's have this conversation because this feels different. Like I've seen this story countless times growing up, but this one feels different. Like what inspired you guys to like reach out and actually just want to have this discussion?
Well, the simple, like it does feel different. And I have a lot of thoughts about why I think this one is different. And also like how messed up is the situation when we say this one is different.
Yes.
But we wanted to reach out and the word that kind of came to us is allyship. That's what we want the conversation to be about. And it's the simple truth is, I don't know if you noticed this, but Bethany and I are white.
Yes.
Actually a thing. And we're
very, very white.
Very white. And it's we grew up this way and all this stuff, and we see these things, and again, you're seeing them time after time. It's not enough. We feel it's not enough to just put a blackout screen on Instagram and call my black friend and be like, hey, thinking about you. Like that's what that's how we used to do it, right? And this time is different, and I kind of want to pick that up and like act on it. And I think we're seeing all these protests and we're seeing stuff happen, stuff change actually stuff is working. And in an attempt to not only keep that conversation going and when this gets posted, that's going to continue this stuff, it's going to continue the pressure, we're going to keep doing this. But even more than that, it's coming from a place of we want to grow and learn.
I would say like for us, for me, having these kinds of conversations is not something that I really have done in my lifetime, which is like, I feel like that's, first of all, that speaks to my privilege that I'm not forced to, because it's not necessarily touching me personally. And so it's easy to just be like, well, I'm not going to talk about it. And for me, it comes from a place of like, not wanting to say the wrong thing or like not wanting, like when we reached out to you, something that I was really kind of worried about is that I don't want to put the pressure on you to be like, hey, we're white people, tell us what to do. Like, tell us how to not be racist. Like that's putting, emotional labor on you, and that's not fair. And I got to the point, like he was saying with this one, where it's like that's not good enough anymore. It's not good enough for me to say like, well, I'm just going to stay quiet until I'm sure that I can do something perfectly. Because you can't wait to do it perfectly when people are dying, when things are happening. And so that's just kind of where we are, is like, we want to do better. We want to learn and like listen and do better. And so we are trying to do that. And we don't really know how, but
like it like you were saying, this one, like we were talking about before, this one feels different. And I think a lot of it may, this is the cynicism in me, just because, like I said, I've dealt with this. My first case that affected me was Sean Bell in 2005. He was killed by police officers the day before his wedding. And the police shot at his vehicle 50 times. And they were all acquitted for all charges. And I'm like, 2000, like I'm 27 now. So in 2005, I would have been about 12.
Yeah.
So, and that was like my introduction. And like, that was part, because, and at that point, my mother and my father already knew, like, they're not going to get arrested. They're not, either they're not going to get arrested or they're going to get arrested and they're going to be acquitted of all charges. And it was only because of the excessive nature that they were even arrested. Like if it was only 4 or 5 shots, they probably would have swept it under the rug like it never happened. So a lot of time, like, so part of our conversations growing up was that about our interactions with police to try to circumvent it. And then realizing the reality that even after you may do everything right, like the man in Georgia, he died, and you know, it hit me. That's why I was like completely numb. Well, not numb, but I was just completely out of it. Like that one really shook me to my core, because like 3 years ago, I was arrested on a DWI, and I was drunk in my car next to a Wendy's, just like how he was.
Wow.
So that could have easily ended up being me. Like luckily I didn't. And I had an aggressive officer that was like pissed off at me, like just for the fact that I was in that position, even though I did exactly what they tell you to do.
Right.
Yeah.
He did exactly what they tell you to do when you're too drunk. You pull over somewhere and you try to sleep it off or something like that.
Right.
And, you know, I tried my best to diffuse the situation. And I guess that's like one of the biggest things is that, you know, these stories are so common and like in our culture because the police haven't been held accountable. And I actually do appreciate, you know, people like you that recognize, hey, we can't like be silent. It's not good enough to just not be racist, to just not be against, you know, there's a lot of people just say, well, I'm not racist. I don't have a problem with black people. So this is like, that's the full extent of, you know, my contribution. Because it's not just with black people. Like this movement right here is about us. But like, when you think about the police as a whole, like it's a lot of, like police have been known to rape women.
Under custody.
They've, you know, raped women while they're in their custody and nothing is done about it. They have killed, you know, people of all colors. It just so happens that we're the ones that get affected because like they're taught that black people are a threat. They are taught that that they should already have their guard up. They should already be fearing for their lives, or using that as their get out of jail free card when they just want to go out there and commit an act of violence. So honestly, like, and also part of me was just so, you know, getting prepared for this episode. Like part of me was just kind of like, I didn't know exactly, like, you know, as far as like, you know, because you asked me like, hey, how to use whiteness to support Black Lives Matter. And I came up with just like 3 things. And it's, you know, this right here is kind of like the start. It's just saying, hey, be vocal and willing to listen in these type of situations, because there's been plenty of times. I remember watching a video with my coworker, like at a previous job that I worked at. It was three black guys, me, 2 other guys, and then this one white coworker I had. And we all looked at the same video. It was 3 cops, as far as I could see, in riot gear, storming a house of like this 90-year-old black woman. They have like riot gear, they have automatic weapons, and she's in her nightgown. And they forcing her on the ground, you know, with guns pointed at her. At that point, they already recognize that this is an elderly woman that poses no threat, and they still have her like that. So we all looked at the video and we discussed it. And he looked at it and said, well, we don't really know the full context. And it's just like, just having that conversation, I just looked at him and said, like, what if that was your grandmother? Because it's the excessive nature of it. It's the fact that she's being treated like this. She's being treated like a criminal when she does not pose no level of threat to that point. But it's her skin color that automatically triggers, hey, no matter like what other circumstances, are prevalent at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's her skin color that automatically warrants that level of aggression, that level of, you know, force.
Mm-hmm.
So like a lot of, well, at that point he wasn't hearing me, like, because you know, and I've had conversations with people, with other white folks that I know, and they tell me all the time, like, you know, they were taught that the police were superheroes.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
they should be.
That's what we were taught.
Yeah. So it's like, when it's their word against, you know, somebody else's, you know, you should automatically believe them because they're on the side of right, no matter what. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect. And I think I'm now, with people being home, able to look online and see videos and realizing that, oh, this isn't just a one-time incident. This happened in 2017, 2015, 2009, 2005, 1999, 1978, 1992. Like, it happened continuously. And then you're starting to see a pattern. You're starting to realize that there's an issue. So, you know, I never say it's too late. I just, you know, if somebody's willing to have a conversation, we can at least start from there. So what do you guys think? Like, have you ever been in a situation where you didn't believe, didn't believe the cops were on the side of wrong?
Well, I mean, I definitely, like we were saying, was raised, you know, being told the cops are the good guys, they're superheroes, they're here to help you. And there was never a conversation about being cautious of the police or being wary of them, or that they could be threatening to me. It was always...
I feel like the extent of that was in driver's ed, just being like, you know, like, don't reach for your registration in the glove box until the officer tells you to, because they don't know if you have a gun.
Yeah,
blah,
they
blah,
do that.
And that's it. There's nothing about, like, the way you look.
Yeah, none of that. And nothing about, I mean, well, that's kind of beside the point, but I definitely, when I was younger, and, you know, I think when you're a kid and when you're young, you just kind of puppet what you hear people around you saying, parrot what you hear people around you saying. And certainly I would, you know, hear stories of police violence or whatever, and always was like, well, I don't know the full context, and the police are usually the good guys. And, you know, it took me growing up and having to really face the world for myself and kind of be challenged on that, and realize how much I didn't know, which I think is just an important part of growing up, is realizing how much you don't know and how your experience is not everybody's experience.
I say this more and more, especially now, but like, I am deeply grateful for my patient Black friends, you know, who took the time to, in a way that I could receive it, despite, you know, growing up the way I did, to challenge certain notions and challenge certain things, and just be like, hey, actually, there is a pattern here. This does actually affect us. This is actually a thing, and your interactions with police and your relationship with the police is fundamentally different. And yeah, like, that's, I forgot exactly how you articulated your question. But it was college. I was in college before I started really giving this a thought, or really being in a place where I could listen. You know, I wasn't walking around, you know, all the time being like, cops are great, cops are great, cops are great. But, you know, it was just, it didn't affect me, so I didn't think about it.
Yeah. See, it's like, it's different, because I remember, because, you know, hearing about this experience, I remember having that conversation in driver's ed, and then I remember, like, you know, because you go home and you talk to your parents, like, oh yeah. So I remember, like, my mom talking to me, like, also, matter of fact, not only not having it in the glove box, but you need to already have it out before they even reach your window. Because at any moment, even at a moment where they tell you to reach for whatever, like license or registration, they could still, you know, yank you out the car. At that point, like, my mom wasn't trying to scare me, so she wasn't trying to, like, say that they might just go ahead and shoot you. but you know, they could try to yank you out of the car. They could put you under arrest. They could tell you get on the ground. Like, I actually just thought about another story. Like, I was 14 and my brother, like Roz, he was 12. He's walking up the street ahead of me. Like, we're about to go play basketball with some friends. He's walking down the street and police officers just stop him. They just hop out the car, like immediately hop out the car, like tell him he got to get under arrest, like, and they just make him sit on the ground. And I'm like, you know, it's my little brother. So I'm like, hey, what's going on? They immediately do the exact same thing to me. Apparently, like, they trying to say that my brother fit a description of a guy. And my brother at the time, he was maybe about 5'4", 5'5". And the guy that they were looking for was 6'8", a grown adult with face tattoos that looked nothing like my brother. Just because, you know, it's just, and then the guy obviously is like super aggressive. I mean, to the point where even his partner was looking at him and trying to calm him down, trying to say, we're not trying to have an incident or something like that. So, you know, it's just little different things like that. That's our experience with a police officer.
That's not, that has never, ever remotely ever happened to me. In like any shade of that has never happened to me or any of my white friends that I know. Like, if that had happened to one of us, like, that would be the story that you would tell every time you hung out. That would have been a huge thing. And nothing like that. And like, how does that shape your view of police officers if that's like one of your first experiences? Like, you say you learned about was it Sean Bell when you're 12, and then 2 years later this is an interaction with the police,
right?
And you're not
but at that point, like, we had that conversation for so long, like, because it's even before Sean Bell, we're having these conversations. This is just part of your life growing up being Black, is like learning about how to try to maneuver around the police officer. And it even got to a point where at that point, we wasn't even, after it was done and they let us go, only reason why they really let us go was because they got a call on the radio about something more urgent they had to go handle. And we just counted ourselves lucky. Like, we were upset, we were irritated, we were frustrated, but we realized that it could have been a lot worse. So we just kind of like dust ourselves off. And that's just kind of part of it. So, and that's why, like you said, with your patient friends, like, I try to be understanding. It's frustrating sometimes because you know, being a marginalized group and you're trying to talk to people like, hey, this is what's really going on with us. We're getting beat, harassed, and killed by the police for no reason. And people are kind of it's just falling on deaf ears. I try to understand that there is like a disconnect. There's a difference because there's like, you know, like two different Americas, basically. Like, one America has a bubble, everything is fine, everything is great. As long as you stay out of trouble, you ain't got to worry about the police. And, you know, this other side that where it could, at any moment, you could get beat, harassed, anything like that. And you have to just try to do your best. Like, I'm driving with, like, my inside rearview mirror is messed up. I don't travel too far because I don't want that to be the excuse that a police officer tries to pull me over. Luckily, like, with the quarantine, I ain't got to worry about moving. But
another positive, I mean, even stuff like that, man. Like, little things of like, you know, like my taillight was out, my brake lights were out for a month,
right?
And that whole thought process of like, I don't want this to be the reason I get pulled over because I don't want a ticket. I can't afford a ticket. Like, that's my rationale for not having an interaction with the police. It's not because I'm afraid I'm going to get shot.
Right.
I did get pulled over and I had a headlight out. And yeah, I mean, I remember just being, when I had to pull over and I wasn't scared. I wasn't like, I just was kind of annoyed and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to like explain why I haven't gotten this fixed yet. And I mean, it wasn't until afterwards that I kind of reflected, like, that's not, most, like, people don't always have that experience that I have, that like, of just like, it'll be fine, I'm just going to talk to them and everything will be fine, you know. But I wonder if, you know, you mentioned like people saying, well, we don't know the context, we don't know the full story, blah, blah, blah. And I wonder the significance of cell phone cameras and that people are able to film this stuff now, and that we're seeing all these videos. And I think it was Will Smith in like 2016 who said things is not getting worse, it's getting filmed.
Right.
But that's forcing people to be like, you see what happened, you don't need both sides of the story or whatever, you can see it.
Like a big part of this movement is the internet and the camera phones, because you can't avoid it. Like some people try to unplug, but because of people's, I mean, you know, basic addiction to social media, addiction to their phones, and if it's plastered everywhere, that's why it like we would, like you said before, it wasn't enough to put the black box up, but people talk down about social media activism, and I don't agree with that, just because it does put it in, because social media, because it's, you know, you're able to reach so many people from your phone, from your laptop or your computer. You're able to reach so many people that you would never be able to interact, or you wouldn't normally be able to interact with in person. Like you're able to share this information, is getting to people that are unaware, that whether they need to be careful because this is going on in your area, or just making people aware that this is actually happening in America.
Absolutely.
So that's one thing positive. And I think it got to the point, because it's only really been filmed the last few years. This is decades of this, but only the last few years we've been seeing video footage of what's going on in the police. And it's happening so frequently, people are starting to realize that, the police are a problem and we need to handle that. So I think that's also another, like one of the points, because I'm gonna try to wrap this up in a little bit. But, I was starting to look at my timer like, oh snap. But another thing is like, after you listen to these stories, it's kind of like just educate yourself, you know, like being willing to say, not only like listen, but be able to look into it, look at other cases, look at other situations that kind of furthers, because it's not just enough to like listen, but then you kind of get the full scope when you go out and see what else, like in this situation, what else are the police doing? What else, what has led to this? Because buildings and riots are breaking out, and buildings are burning down and coming down because this is like decades of frustration. And they got to the point where people, and then you see how these cases went about. Well, how did these people get off? Like how, because of all these loopholes, there's certain things like in the laws or the language they can take advantage of and get off scot-clean. And then the other thing is just like, support causes. Like there's some people that don't, it's not everybody's job to be out there in the front line taking bullets and tear gas all the time. There's other positions that have to be played to make sure that, this is basically an organization. Everybody can't do the same job. So it's, just be willing to just do stuff like, hey, sign a petition, donate if you have the funds, like boycott. Like that's one big thing that always happens. Like that always seems to, make things happen when it's starting to affect businesses' bottom lines. Because, the financial part of, the police, that's why people talk about defunding the police. Like if it started to affect their bottom line and their pockets and their money, other companies are tied in with the police departments, just like they are with the military. If people start, funding them because they know that, hey, the police are doing this, and our customers are, threatening to take their money away from us, stop shopping with us, stop buying our products, then they'll use their power, their resources to force the change also as well. Because we live in a capitalistic society, and if it's messing with the capital, then that's when people are willing to listen to you more than anything.
But with your wallet.
That's so true.
Right. So it's like, if you see that, hey, this company is, against Black Lives Matter or refuses to support Black Lives Matter, then you can take your money away from too. It's like Black people do it, but if our allies did it, and that would create greater numbers. It would put those companies in a position where they wouldn't be able to recover without making those necessary changes.
Yeah. And I've seen a lot of people also encouraging you to look a little deeper, because there's a lot of companies that will say Black Lives Matter, but then like look at their hiring practices, look at what they actually do.
Look who's on the board.
Right.
Look who's on the board. Look a little deeper. And that goes to what you were saying about like doing the research, educate yourself, read, which is again something that I'm new to, and I feel like I'm just getting into. But
like we just saw it with Starbucks, they put out the same message that everybody else was putting out about showing support. We hear you, we see you, and then ban their employees 2 weeks after that from wearing anything supporting Black Lives Matter.
I think they did undo that, but
well, after public pressure.
Well, exactly. There you go.
Because people found out about it.
Yeah. Man. I do want to ask, like, and again, like, this is just your opinion, and hopefully we're going to be doing more of these with our musician friends of color.
Right.
But specifically, like, all that stuff is definitely applicable to any of us white folks. Like, those are three very tangible, very easy, not easy, but, very specific good things to do. But as musicians, because we are both in the triangle music scene here, right? What are some things that you want to see white musicians in the scene do? Like, what are some things that we can do? What's some things that you'd like? I think it's just your personal take. Because we're a synth pop band, which is a genre predominantly white. Like most of the people we look up to in terms of musical influence
bands
and
that we
they're white. And so it's kind of that circle thing of like, all right, well, this type of music is made by white people like it. Our audience is primarily white people, and our audience is primarily our friends and family, and most of them are white people. So and so the cycle continues. It's just like and also the people who we play with when the genre makes sense, most of them are white as well. And so it just like it's just like none of that's nefarious or malicious or anything like that. It just, to me, it's like, well, that's something that's just kind of played out here, and I want to just look at that and address it and help with that framework.
Well, I would say, and it is something that was it's something I was thinking about too. It's kind of like making the spaces more inclusive. And it's not done on purpose, like you said. Like, it just kind of happens sometimes, like, certain, it's not deliberate segregation, but just sometimes that's just kind of how the dice roll, basically. But in times like this, one thing I would like to see, and I've seen other guys like Nance, he's been very vocal. Just like people just speaking up when situations like this. And then I know I've heard from artists, even hip hop artists, because primarily, white people do buy more hip hop than black people do. So there are other hip hop artists. Yeah, like it's been like a shift not too long ago. It's like recently, but just the fact that like there are a lot of artists, even other black artists, that are afraid to speak up because they're afraid their fans or we reject them or pull their support. But I think it's kind of like taking that risk, just being like, hey, this is bigger than music. This is bigger than keeping a couple more dollars in my pocket because I have a couple racist fans that want to see me completely ignore or denounce this. Like, just being like, hey, because then there may be other people that listen to your music that are in those same spaces, other artists that are in that genre that may not be as aware, and just using your platform to bring attention to the movement, bring attention to what the suffering and the issues that are going on out here, that would also help. And then that may that would help kind of knock down those walls of like musical segregation and have more people willing to give other genres a chance.
Yeah. Great.
All right, well, yo, that's our time. I appreciate you guys.
I think we did it. I think we solved racism. I think that was it.
Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit more than that, but as far as like we've just solved the discussion that we had today, the problems we brought up today.
Yeah, seriously, thank you for having us on your show and talking about this. And
no problem.
We asked you to have this conversation.
Yeah. And I appreciate you guys reaching out. You know, after we've had the discussion, I will say that I'm glad that we went ahead and moved forward with making this happen. All right, but yo, y'all tune in to the next episode. Make sure y'all look out for new music coming out from Waking April, coming out later this year. Peace and love. Y'all stay tuned.
Man.
See ya.
Let's see what happens now. Exercise my demons. I think we can work it out. I think we can work it out. Think we can work it out. Let's see what happens now.